Well, hey everybody. I wanted to just take this opportunity to update you on how I ended up moving to Northern Ireland. I am now in Coleraine and I'm living here. I haven't fully moved everything over yet, but this is now going to be home for the next however long Jesus has me here. So yeah, it's quite a story, and I just thought I'd love to fill you in on some of that journey and yeah, let you know what God's been doing and let you in on the adventure. So yeah, many of you will be aware that I have been in Bedford at the King's Arms Church for 30 years. It's such a long time. I originally moved to Bedford to as a student to train as a teacher, and I graduated as a PE teacher, and I have been in Bedford ever since, never left, been part of the King's Arms for that length of time, worked on staff for many years, and it's been such a life-changing, transformative, incredible time in so many ways. Like, I'm so grateful for all that Jesus did. It's the place where I did Alpha, where I first really understood the gospel. It's the place where I was filled with the Holy Spirit. I learned about the prophetic. I learned about healing. I understood and learned about words of knowledge. It's the place where I was first encouraged into leadership, where I led student work, and then I led youth work, and then I led ministry teams, and then I led a supernatural school, and so many different things. It's the place where I wrote my books, where I've met so many wonderful friends, where I have learned about God as Father, where I've understood the importance of culture in a church, where I've fallen in love with the Holy Spirit. I mean, so many things. It's the place where I've received incredible healing and freedom. So unbelievably grateful for my time in Bedford at the King's Arms. And it's interesting, people would sometimes ask me, do you think you'll ever leave Bedford? And I used to say to them, if God calls me somewhere else, I would go, but I just never had any sense or anticipation that was going to happen. And yet here we are. I have moved. I'm now living in Coleraine in Northern Ireland. What's the crack? I'm still trying to perfect my Irish accent. I'm really terrible, and my friends here laugh at me a lot, but doing my best. What's the crack? How are you? But yeah, lots of practicing still to do. But yeah, absolutely loving being here. And it's a major transition. My roots were really deep in Bedford. I was really established there. It felt very safe, very comfortable. So it's been a huge move, a huge upheaval in many ways, a huge change. But God made it incredibly clear, and I just want to share some of the story, really to update you and fill you in on what's been going on, but also really hoping that it would encourage those of you who are listening, who are maybe sensing that you're in a transition season or you're wondering what God's got for you. I can testify that if He wants you to move or to make a big transition, He is very good at making it clear. So it kind of kicked off last March. I was invited over here to the church I'm now part of, which is called Portico. It's a pretty new church. It will only have been running 2 years in August. And I was invited over to do some stuff here, and I was able to do some stuff with the leaders and also do an encounter night and then preach on the Sunday morning. And I think when I arrived, I'd already been starting to get to know one of the leaders here, Greg, and his wife, Claire. And when I came, and particularly in the encounter night and on the Sunday morning, it was one of those moments where I felt like I stepped into a space that matched in a deeper way than I've ever known what I feel like God has put in my heart of what I long for church. So a big emphasis on the presence of God. We're gathering together for Jesus, to look at Him, to love Him, to prioritize His presence. That's what we're wanting to build things around. And I experienced in the worship such a hunger for Jesus, such a collective hunger for Jesus. And I'm not sure I've ever experienced that before. Maybe sometimes in conferences, but not on Sundays. Not on Sundays in churches. I've had the privilege of visiting many, many churches. And throughout the course of that worship time on that Sunday morning, I was completely blown away and felt like I went on a journey with the Holy Spirit. I feel like he spoke to me about some things. I feel like there were moments when I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. And then the next minute I was crying because I was just aware of his holiness and aware of needing to get right with him. And no one had said something from the front. It was just that God was there and he was speaking to me. And I remember coming away thinking, this feels like it's the wineskin I've been longing for, and all of a sudden I've seen it and thought, well, this is actually possible. And so I was already in a bit of a wondering about that, feeling like, gosh, I think it would benefit me from spending a bit more time here. And through a combination of that visit and also feeling like things in Bedford, different things, the doors were closing, I think Jesus just had to make it very clear in his kindness by shutting off certain doors, so some relational stuff, some stuff with the church, some other things that were going on. It just felt like things were coming to an end, doors were closing, and yet when I came over here in that March, it felt like a wide open space, and I felt very seen, and very celebrated, and so it felt like the combination of doors closing and something opening up, and I didn't know what it was. Anyway, I then thought, well, maybe I'll go and spend time there for a month in the September. That felt like a big deal. Felt too scary to think about coming away longer, but I thought I could probably do a month, okay, just to be in the environment a little bit longer and to experience a little bit more. When I spoke to a few people, their encouragement to me was, I'm not sure a month is going to really fulfill what you want it to fulfill. Maybe you need to go for longer. How about maybe 3 months? And so I started to think about this and started to sense God was saying, yeah, maybe I need to come for 3 months. But it was very scary for me, running my own ministry. I'm single. I don't have anyone to do this journey with in terms of a husband. So it felt very vulnerable, a little bit exposing. And how is this going to work? But I knew I needed a break, a bit of a sabbatical. Anyway, I wrote in my journal, and I just wrote down, I don't know if you've ever done this, I wrote down a whole list of things that, okay, God, I think you're saying I should go for 3 months, but if that's true, could you please sort this and this and this? I want these conversations. I would like this to become very clear, like loads of fleeces. And one of the fleeces was to do with accommodation. And I remember writing in my journal, I want somewhere that I can stay on my own, that's affordable, that's not too far away from community. Bearing in mind, I only really knew this one family. And I'd looked at different options and it was pretty expensive. And I just put it in my journal and kind of almost like, okay, God, if you want me to do this, you're going to have to sort this out. Kind of in my heart thinking it takes the pressure off a bit because, if he doesn't do it, I don't have to go for that time. Anyway, 18 days after writing this in my journal, I got a text message from Claire, who's married to Greg and on the leadership team here. And she said to me that the house directly opposite them was empty, that the person who owned the house was living somewhere else. And as she'd had a conversation with this lady, the lady had said it would be absolutely fine for me to rent it. And the rent that she was asking for was very reasonable for this 3-4 bedroomed house directly opposite the only people I really knew in Coleraine. And as soon as this text came through, I thought to myself, oh no, I think this is it. I'm off to Northern Ireland. I'm off to Coleraine, because all of a sudden God had answered very clearly and very miraculously this one longing. It was a game changer for me. And so all of a sudden I realised, okay, I am off to Coleraine and God has done it. So I came over in the September for 3 months, stayed in that house, got stuck into the community here, and it was a very healing time, a very refreshing time. I was still doing a little bit of ministry stuff, but I stripped it quite back just so that I had time to be. It was a bit like a sabbatical, just to recover, having done counselling for a year and a bit. That had been hard, but felt like it was just a beautiful time of connecting with people, getting to know people, and just being in a beautiful place, beautiful surroundings. And as I just felt like being here, my soul started to heal, and I started to come alive again in a way that I hadn't done for a while. So then I headed back to Bedford in December, and I was umming and ahhing about what to do. And really, it was a bit of a no-brainer. I kind of had got to the point of why wouldn't I move over? But I didn't want to say that. It felt too much. It felt too risky. Felt like too big a deal. But I couldn't see myself staying or moving back to Bedford and just staying where I was. I think for a while I'd felt a bit stuck spiritually. I didn't really know what I was meant to be doing, where my space was, where my place was, what does this ministry look like? And I couldn't get my head around just coming back and settling back into that place when I knew that there was more that God had for me. So I took some time to pray over December, and I knew that I had the option of going back into this house I'd been in just for 1 month. So it was going to be available for a month, and then I didn't have anything else. And I ummed and ahed with Jesus. I thought to myself, do I go back with 1 month accommodation and trust God to provide while I'm there? Or do I hang back and wait until something more permanent and secure has come into place? And it was a tricky decision. But in the end, I decided to come out here in February, and I had this accommodation for a month. And it was hard moving away from Bedford. It was hard leaving. It's when your roots are really deep, that's costly. Even when you know that God's in it. So I came back with accommodation for a month, and I just spent time praying. Jesus, what are you going to do? I need somewhere to stay. I was realizing that to rent somewhere on your own without other housemates is quite expensive. It would actually be cheaper to buy somewhere, but that felt like too big a thing to do at that point. Anyway, I was out praying at one point, and I just was asking Jesus about the house stuff, and I felt him say to me, the breakthrough's going to come in the 3rd week. And I don't know if you know this or you have experienced this, when sometimes you think you've heard from Jesus, but you're like, I could just be making this up. But that's all I'd heard. So I thought, okay, well, I feel like God said the breakthrough's going to come in the 3rd week. So I told a few people, and I started to pray. And I wrote down in my journal a whole list of things I was looking for in the place I was going to stay. So I wanted at least 2 bedrooms so I could host people, couple of bathrooms. I wanted a fire. I wanted a beautiful view. I had a set number of rent I wanted to pay, and not above that. I wanted a relational connection. This felt like way out of the league. Like if I could avoid going through estate agents, I wanted to do that. I wanted some kind of relational connection. Anyway, I wrote all these things down. And then I ended up having a conversation with one of the young adults at Portico, and found out that her and her fiance are going to be moving into a house in a place called Castle Rock when they get married, which wasn't until July or June, end of June. And I had the thought, I wonder if anyone's living there now. And I spoke to Claire, she had the same thought. So I reached out to this young adult and said, hey, is there actually anyone in the house now, or is it empty? And she told me that there had been someone living here, but that he had literally moved out that week. So she was able to get in touch with the people who own the house, and then I was able to meet them that week, which is the 3rd week. And honestly, it's just been miraculous in terms of what God has provided. So it's a beautiful bungalow. It's in a place called Castle Rock, which is about 7 minutes walk to the beach. It's a beautiful beach. It's got 3 bedrooms. It's got 2 bathrooms. It's got an open fire. There's the relational connection. The rent was higher than what I'd put in my journal, but I had a conversation with the couple, and they very, very kindly and very generously agreed to give me the house for less rent. And when they said what they wanted to give it to me for, it was exactly what I had put in my journal. The other mind-blowing thing was that it's on a road called Belvedere Park, and I found out that the word Belvedere actually means, in Italian, beautiful view. So it's just absolutely unbelievable what God has done and how he's provided. When I came to see the property, just before I left, I turned around to walk out at the door, and there's a piano in the lounge, and on the piano is a very small picture of something their daughter had painted several years ago, and it's of the scripture of anything is possible with God, and on the painting is a rainbow. And any of you who will know my story will know that rainbows are hugely significant to me. They've been massively significant all through my surgeries, all through my health journey. God has always revealed rainbows just at the right time, and he's always spoken about everything's going to be okay. And so as I turn around to walk out of this place, there's a rainbow on the piano. And so honestly, it has been the most amazing adventure, honestly, the most amazing and overwhelming journey so far of seeing God provide above and beyond. It has been absolutely overwhelming, and I feel like I've encountered his love for me in a way that I haven't done before, and the way he's provided and his attention to detail. And I think all of these things have helped me to realise it's absolutely right that I'm here, that he has opened the door, opened doors miraculously. It has been an absolute miraculous provision for me to be here, and I'm still very much on this journey, still very much feeling like my mind is being transformed in terms of trusting him. I've got this place now until the 20th of June, and so now I'm in this situation of asking him, okay, what's next? So I'm starting to look at properties. I'm trying to work out where am I going to live next. I'd love to have somewhere that feels more permanent, and where I can really make it my home, and I can bring stuff over from Bedford and really settle in properly. I have no idea what God's going to do. I don't really have any sense. It's interesting. I keep saying to people that I'm definitely in this season getting more empathy for the disciples, particularly around the stories of the feeding of the 5,000 and then the feeding of the 4,000. So, they go through this situation with the feeding of the 5,000. They freak out about providing food. They have these 5 loaves, 2 fish. Jesus says, you give them something to eat. And then they watch him miraculously multiply this food, and they give it out. And then a few chapters later, it's the feeding of the 4,000, and they're in exactly the same position with less people, and they still freak out. They've forgotten what Jesus did a few chapters before. And I always used to judge the disciples and think, come on guys, you've just seen Jesus multiply food miraculously. Why are you stressing now? You know the drill, you know what he's going to do. He's going to do it again. And I used to judge them. And now I find myself in this position where I have seen Jesus miraculously provide the place I'm staying in the 3rd week of 4 that I had accommodation when I needed breakthrough. And now I'm in the same position. I am in the same position of I have got under 2 months before I need to find somewhere else to be, and I'm freaking out. I flip between, oh, how exciting is this, to, what are you going to do, Jesus? And so I have so much empathy for the disciples. I'm praying that Jesus would provide. I have no idea what he's going to do. I have no idea if I'm going to buy somewhere or if I'm going to rent somewhere, and how that's all going to work out. Basically, what I'm asking Jesus is that he would be my husband, and that he would make it very clear where I'm meant to be, and that I want to be where he wants me to be. And I'm also praying again for a relational connection, that somehow an option would come up in conversation and that it would all work out. So please pray for me. Please be praying. It's not straightforward to rent somewhere on your own, or in terms of buying somewhere with one salary. The amount I can borrow is limited, and so please be praying. I want to see Jesus provide. I know that he's got a plan. Please pray from my heart to stay in a place of peace as I'm on this journey, and just please be praying that Jesus would provide the best place for me to make my home. What I want to do is just be able to get my stuff here, make somewhere my home, and invite people into that space, and host people and be hospitable and see people encounter God when they come over. So please be praying. But that's where I'm at. I'm in terms of what I'm doing. I'm still doing my Equip ministry, so I'm working just from a different place. So still doing online courses around hosting God's presence. Still being invited to travel to different churches, to serve different churches. I just come back from Scotland this weekend. We had an amazing time, and I'm doing a conference in London at the beginning of June. So still doing that and travelling around, still doing my rooted ministry, which is my 18th, what we do for 18s to 35s. So we did a day event a couple of weeks ago in North London, and we've got our discipleship school in the beginning of July, and then we'll do another rooted day in October, but we're going to do it here in Coleraine, so that feels exciting. And I also started to do some coaching, so just some one-to-one coaching, helping people who feel like they have a sense of what God's calling them to, or they've had lots of prophetic words but they don't really know how to filter through them to work out what God's saying, and helping them take next steps into who God's called them to be and the influence he's called them to have. So just started that, and that's a lot of fun. So I'm still doing all of that, and I'm part of the church here, Portico. Sounds much better in a Northern Irish accent. Portico, that's terrible, but anyway, Portico, and loving being here. I'm starting to connect with some of the young adults here, which I'm absolutely loving. So they're just fantastic, brilliant people, and we're having some great conversations, and meeting for coffees, and they're coming over and having dinner, and we're just having chats and asking good questions and worshipping together. And so I'm absolutely loving doing that. And I'm preaching every so often, and really just waiting to see, okay, God, what are you going to do? I don't know in all its fullness why God's brought me here. That's not clear. What I do know is I am feeling more and more alive in my heart, feeling more and more aware of who I am and what I'm called to bring and what I carry, and what I'm longing for the church. And so I'm really loving that, and the physical scenery is beautiful, and I think I'm experiencing some of the impact of that. So as I'm walking by the beach and just seeing this expanse of water in this massively spacious place, I feel like there's a parallel in terms of what God's doing in my heart and spiritually for me. So it's an adventure. I'm waiting to see how Jesus continues to lead me, and it's not without its cost in terms of having left friends behind and familiarity. But I am so grateful for God's hand on me and for his adventure, this new adventure he has for me. And I honestly would really value your prayers, just that I would stay close to him, that he would lead me very clearly into all that he's got for me, that he would open up the right doors and firmly close the wrong doors. And ultimately, my longing is that I would be able to be all that he's called me to be, and give him glory, bring him glory through my life. So thank you so much. And if you have any questions, any prophetic senses, please do reach out. But yeah, let's see what Jesus has in store as I go on this adventure.